Graceful greetings to all, and the warmest of delighted welcomes. Thank you for taking some of your time to watch my video. I beseech you to please stay with me till the end of this video. In this video today, I bring forth to you my opinion concerning the unfair treatment of the Afrikaner people in South Africa. On my previous video, I referred to how well my opinion in a nutshell is I do believe, or I kind of have experienced that there might be, at least to a certain percentage, a reality to the fact that there is currently an anti-Afrikaner racism going on in South Africa. And my reference to this fact was that I have experienced this myself. So today I bring forth to you a few details concerning my experience regarding this matter. Here I come. Okay. Now, to be honest, right, I really do not like discussing racism, funny enough. However, this is a matter that now it is very important for me to explain so that everybody understands where I am coming from with my opinions or decisions that I can reach to or that I've reached to. And in order to maybe give a little more information to the public, also because I understand that it is important for us to kind of brief each other in these kind of situations, for whosoever is looking for peace to understand that from which angles are some people like myself coming from and deciding to speak up or deciding to come forward and say, hey people, Donald Trump is not being a dictator, he's not intruding in South Africa's matters, some people do need help, and this anti-Afrikaner racism has been going on for some time in the country. Now this is where I'm coming from. My family has a history of a very painful experience regarding anti-Afrikaner racism. My name is Katrina Hope Festen Menschwelle. I was born in 1999 on the 25th of May in Pietermaritzburg from a natively Afrikaner interracial family. My grandpa was an Afrikaner colored farmer. He was adopted by a white man and raised by an Afrikaner white man. He was a descendant of an interracial family called the Hoffmans, who during the apartheid laws decided to convert themselves to one of the Bantu languages and decided to change their surname to Likoklo. Now, during that, however, my grandpa's family had a debate over this decision. Some parts of the family were comfortable and some were not. Now, my grandpa came from the section that, wanted to keep their Afrikaans culture and go on as who they are, even though seeking peace. But they didn't want to abandon their European heritage. Now, his mom passed away and his dad while he was still a child, and he was left suffering. It all began there that none of the very colored people took care of him, and a white man did. After this happened, he grew up well, and his dad educated him and helped him study and try to help him find a job. Now, my grandpa worked at Transnet as an Afrikaner, and his dad handed over the farm of which he grew up in, and they were running a business, a very large farm with different kind of farm activities. Not only growing crops was being done, they had a bit of like racing and other productions and slightly trying to be involved in manufacture and stuff. But as that went on the years when my mom was growing up, who is the daughter of this man, my mom, well, according to her, experienced that different attacks that happened, and with the arguments of some of the people from the very same colored nation, some of the blacks, and I'm not saying there were no whites at all, but most of all was the people that were against the whole Afrikaner farmer's way of living, and most of all the people that were also like trying to fight the very fact of that he was an example of that we are human beings, as in he was colored and he was raised by a white man, and they needed to destroy that living. And those kind of people kind of intruded and murdered his animals and stuff like that, and our family lost what we had. It all began there, that their financial states decreased and they had to move to a new area. However, it's when my mom was on the way completing her studies and she went to get married. Now, yes, this is when now it comes to the third generation of me and my siblings. Now, my mom, which is of course a colored lady, was trying to now settle and raise her kids the way her dad raised her, and trying to work, and my dad was also working, and they were trying to establish themselves, but keeping who they are. My mom said, well, okay, she's gonna try to settle, and hearing of the story, she was trying to, settle, raise us, and find a way to bring her family back to a better financial state. And in the process of that, our dad passed away before we start school. Now, this made things even more horrible. However, while this was, our mom said, fine, we are going to continue with our living, and we do not have to necessarily get angry and blame this matter on a certain group of people. She didn't look at this as a certain group of people. She tried to settle, educate us and make sure that, she's going to brief us on just keeping peace and look up to the future. And so that's what we were. Now, in this peacekeeping, she didn't necessarily hide away from us what her background was, but all she told us was the truth, and the fact that her dad always asked her to know that she must keep who she is. The most important thing is to respect other people, to have peace with people, and try to look at building your country, uniting people, and to never uplift people that divide the nation, to always stick to people that bring the world together. Basically, keep Christian, forgive and forget. That was the motto. Now, that's what we were taught as we were coming up. However, our mom told us to not bother the whole fact that her family had done the name change and so forth. She's going to deal with stuff like that. So she raised us speaking English and Afrikaans. We were a Catholic family that sometimes attended the Methodist church, and from there on went on to pray at home. Now, in these years growing up, it all began here, that we were trying to live in a mixed community, trying to learn in a mixed school in post-1994 South Africa. This is in the early 2000s when me and my siblings are now going to school. And this is where the whole anti-Afrikaner racism experience begins. This is now the third generation, and we are looking for peace. We are kids living long after 1994. We are schooling long after 1994. But now, at school, when we got there, I cannot say we were learning with people that are in parliament. We were learning with school children, people of our ages. But what they were taught from their homes or wherever they picked it up, kids always had a problem with our family, mostly kids from the African black race. I'm not to say all of them, not that there were not that one or two or three nice kids you'd meet here and there, but for the most part, the fact that my family was, well, a family of now colored and white kids, and my siblings were like behaving just as I do. We carried the same kind of behavior. Now, my mom met with this issue where there were many colored people that came from families that, well, did not even transition their names necessarily, but their behaviors and the cultures they practiced. The idea of modern South Africa coming together was that everybody's forced to leave what they are and practice black cultures. Now we would get criticized by children from the African black race and colored children and Indian children, and now this was beginning to become very confusing for us. Now, I know it's going to sound like a lie, but my very colored siblings were only managed to simply have much, much better peace when chilling with white children. Now, our family had a problem with this because we don't want to appear to be racist. So we tried to challenge it. We tried to keep our opinions to ourselves. We tried to disguise who we are to a certain percentage because we're trying to make the word, hey people, we are just believing to what we believe in, but we have nothing against what y'all believe in. It's freedom. We have nothing against loving each other, and we also have nothing against influencing each other, not necessarily. That's the reason why we're trying to have these mixed friends. For the very reason that, hey, kyk, ek luister Rihanna now. Wat is jou musiek? You see, it just must go like that. This is what I do. How about you? It's children. That's how a nation comes together, We're trying to find that flavor. Well, yes, doing this in now the Transvaal, Joburg province, where my mom had resettled after she got married. It was here that we began to experience that a nation cannot come together if the majority of us as average citizens do not agree to be peaceful with one another. Because before the people in power can manage to take over in a democratic society, it is very important what the society believes in, because then this makes up for what they vote, this makes up for how they treat each other, what kind of children do they raise, and this makes up for what the next generation becomes. Now, my mom was looking forward towards a peaceful generation, New South Africa, as the slogan had been announced. But now it was here where we began to realize that, oh, okay, some of the African black teachers had like an unfair treatment towards certain children and towards some of their colleagues. And well, at that time I was like, I'll leave the adults' business, because you know what if they experienced a bit of something from the ends of apartheid? How do I know? Like a second, hey, who am I to speak? So, well, that's what I decided to do, and I left that away. But now the problem became that now these teachers began to become a problem for me. When they had favors where I could see that a certain black teacher that I felt like as a child I like ma'am. Ma'am's really got a good standard of teaching. I want to be her friend. I want to chat with ma'am and so forth. I want to serve ma'am, like whenever she's looking for like which kids are going to come tidy up my table, which kids are going to like just like clean up the desks for today, who are going to go fetch stuff from my car. And you find out like ma'am's giving me this other face like, hey you white girl, how do you expect me to do that? And she prefers like the black child on the other hand of me that doesn't even seem to be attracted to her as much, doesn't even seem to be inspired by her as much. But I guess in the idea of racism, if I'm a white child, then why do I like her? Now this is where I began to have a problem, and however, began to question my mom a bit more. But, well, it was not that I felt I should quit, but I just wanted to find out, like, Mom, what am I supposed to do when this kind of situation comes about? Because I like ma'am, and I was like in primary, I come back crying. It looks like she says this, and she prefers that person because of this, and my mom was like, no, just put that aside and let's carry on. Now my family went on to do this, but then now this didn't end here. Children were like this, people in our mixed neighborhood were like this, and whenever my mom would put her opinion on that, we are just doing what we're doing for ourselves, they would tell her, there isn't such. She would run into some people of her very race, as in other colored people, asking her, what's up with you keeping the English? What's up with you keeping the Afrikaans? I mean, we colored people with brown skin, we black, Afrikaans is from Europe, English is from Europe. Now, she started getting criticized for this, and well, what made the joke even funnier is that my mom's name's Maria, so now, of course, the title started spreading, Maria for the white people. It was this whole Saint Mary joke now, and, well, she never really did them anything, but all she would tell us in the house was that, you know what, my daughter, you white, your siblings are colored, we can love each other. The truth is that if God wanted people to be divided, He wouldn't make them have the ability to love each other. I have no problem. I can be Maria for the white people, because white people are for me too. We all for each other. If everybody looked at it like that, the world would be peaceful. If we all looked at being for each other, the world wouldn't be what it is. So I don't necessarily find the statements to mean I necessarily favor one, but I am for everyone. The truth is, if we are all for each other, that's what makes the human race, then, I mean, what's wrong with being Maria for the white people? And so I'll be like, come on, Mom, and yeah, okay. But I understand the idea, so she was like, so same as you. If any violence happens, you tell the teacher, you tell me, but keep up the good work. Go on speaking to everybody, befriend any kind of person. You know, let the evil go to hell. We just live. Now we went on like that. Up until to a certain extent now, you know, there's a time when in one of our relocations, I was in grade 6, I think, in grade 5 in 2009. And our principal in our school was another colored sir, and he kind of agreed with the way our family kept ourselves. He was also Afrikaans speaking. And he came to my mom and said, you know what, Maria, I don't believe your children are going to make it like this, because now you can be focused on making peace, right? But when your kids get distracted, they won't manage to cope. When teachers don't like them, they could not rate their marks well, and this is going to influence your children's future. You can keep the peace, but make sure your kids are in the right place with the kind of people that can welcome them. Your children are well educated, they're smart, they're disciplined. You'll have a very nice family. I think while I'm here in the school, I think it's better you'll relocate in places where there are a bit more whites, your kids' education, and when you'll succeed from there, you can still run businesses that are going to hire everybody. You can still send your message out. You don't have to let the children get hurt. And my mom was like, no, I wasn't trying to make them get hurt. I didn't know that this topic was going to become corruption and, you know, an everyday thing. I hope that at a certain point people will be like, okay, we get this family's message. They wake up every day, they do what they're doing for themselves, and we're gonna, you know, I hope they're gonna go back and remember that that's what the whole idea of New South Africa was freedom, right? The title was The Rainbow Nation. It wasn't Rainbow Nation without Afrikaners. Now, so my mom arranged for that matter, and, well, they had peace, and that sir was like, wish you good luck. You'll know where I am. You can just come by the nearby schools here that have just a, different setting, and you can see what you'll do there. Okay, now, we had been learning English first language and doing Afrikaans second language. But now this is when, well, some of us went to just a school that had a little more white teachers, but it was ran as a English first language school only, and still had a lot of black students, though having some colored and Indian, while some of us went to the other school nearby that was a double middle school, which had, well, a section with Afrikaans first language and a section with English first language. Now, when we got there, it was there that we tried to relocate and went on with our behavior. But now we experience the same thing again. Now, the percentage of the black students that were there was still on our case, even in this new place. However, the difference was now the school had more white people on teaching positions and a little larger percentage of white students. And that meant the school had a mixed governing body from the parents of the children there, and the people in the department of education. So this made at least people could have like different opinions about each other, but it wouldn't immediately affect how people will mark your schoolwork and how people will arrange your profile, to say. Because now there was hope that some will say negative and some will say positive. So, okay. Now there things began to improve. But then, while this thing began to improve, however, most of the kids that did English first language still met with more of the black teachers. And, well, for people like myself, I was very much feeling the whole weird children fever. And so when I would meet with other girls, I had like this group of other white girls that agreed with me, and we would go chill with our mixed friends. We would chill with like a few coloreds, a few Indians, a few blacks, and it would be all of us together. Now, the similar thing would happen so as we're chilling in the neighborhood, at school, even here. You would find out when the black kids tell us about their style of living, their TV programs. We manage to listen, ask questions. Then when it's our time to begin and tell them about the stuff we do, our music, our movies and everything, it all goes back to, you guys, white stuff, apartheid, this and everything. Oh, so this is all you'll do. How about this? How about that? It starts being criticism all again. Okay, now, well, this began to make racial debates at school, because I was like not the only one. I realized that, okay, well, I thought maybe this is coming from my family being an interracial family, but now the other white kids are having it just as hard. And, well, another white girl said to me, you know what, I think maybe, you must just keep this thing away, because I really do think a lot of people get irritated with the very fact of that they can see that a couple of colored people are backing down, and your mom is like so much far in the idea of this possibility of peace. And, I'm a child. I'm not saying I can say something's wrong with your mom, but I think your mom's really sweet, and I think she's not really going to pick up that, these children come from different backgrounds and their parents taught them differently. And, you can love a person and everything, but I think you guys are like really, really far away in these dreams. And I think y'all should just try to adjust a little bit, just try to adjust a little bit, as in, just, not that y'all don't keep things to yourselves, but maybe just stop chasing the peace, You can await the peace, you can believe in the peace, but these are places for you to chase it. In the shop, in the neighborhood, but at school, just try to keep the rules. Sometimes when you chase people, they might misunderstand you. Some of them think you're trying to be above them. Some people think you're trying to say you're the boss. Just sit back and maybe see if they'll come to you, Then we're like, fine, maybe we'll try. And so sometimes we'd come to people and sometimes we'd sit back. And now is where the whole hurtful side became. Is that I realized when I sat back, there was hardly anybody that came to me. Now, realizing that nobody came to me, I was like, what? A part of me was like, wow, but a part of me was like, no, maybe it's because sitting back's not good. What if I don't realize and I'm being a racist? So I was like, you know what, Katrina, get up, keep who you are, chase the people. That's what it's all about, right? You gotta work for what you want. If peace is what you're searching for, don't give up. So, well, it wasn't only me. I had like a group of like other white children that felt the way I do, and there was like a few coloreds that were feeling the way I do. But funny enough, the colored children that connected to my family were most of colored children like that had close interracial relations, as in like one kid I knew that had a white mom, and another kid I knew that had a white uncle, and people like that. Those are most of the people that would understand my family. And then you would find those few that are from like just basic colored families, and they go like, they think it's okay, we can live the way we're living, nothing's wrong, we can keep our religion, we can keep peace. And then, well, I'm not saying everybody in the school chased people the way I did, but I cannot lie and say I was the only one. There was a couple of other white children that were into this whole let's chase the child fever thing. Like, politics and whatsoever for adults and yesterday and history. So we went on doing this thing. But then now the matter is, in what I was doing, I wanted to study physics and biology, and I realized that most of the English schools in South Africa that were beginning to be taken over by black people did not exactly have a good standard of English, of physics and English and biology. Some of them didn't even do like actual biology. They mostly did life sciences. So in this matter now, on researching with teachers, and then my math teacher in grade 6 walked up to me, and yes, in that place, most of the teachers around there called me Katrenki or Katis, and she was like, hey Katrenki, look here, I think I really like the way you interact with people. I really like the way you not gonna let them make you sit down and focus on violence or revenge or anything like that. I like the way you keep your hope on people. I think you are just about the right person to make it there as an educated person in South Africa. I think you are what we are looking for. And due to this, I would advise you switch and do Afrikaans first language so that you are managed to get to an Afrikaans high school and get to reach the subject you need. And I think maybe the dedication you have on interacting with people can actually make you make a difference in action when you're actually in a good financial state. And then I was like, okay. And well, I asked my mom about the idea, and so that's what we did. I now switched and began learning, picking now the Afrikaans side. And then fine, now things began to improve now when I was in the section where all teachers were white and everything, things were okay. But now here came what was very interesting, is that now when we had to go to high school, and me and my family now relocated in a white neighborhood where most of our neighbors were white, we realized that unlike when we were by a neighborhood with mixed people, and when those of us that were white in the family had to fit in with the colored people, and they would criticize us, but now it became the opposite. In the white neighborhood, most people were like up there, they were chanting for my mom, like, "You're the one." And she was known as the peacemaker. You see, she wasn't known as Maria the colored lady this time around. She was now Maria the peacemaker. Okay, and then my mom was, now this is when she began to say to me, "Hey, you see, this is what I meant, that I can be Maria for the white people, because the white people are for me too. You see, my dad always told me, and what happened with his experience, how he was raised, and she told me that growing up as a child, she had always kept this behavior, and she had always picked up like the different kind of practices that human beings often do in different race groups. And she was like, this is not to say this is how the Creator necessarily made people, to have those that get angry faster than others due to a certain race or language, or people that are necessarily born with a hateful vein or anything. But what she means to say is that the kind of thing you practice is what you become. She believes that for a nation to stand, like, we have to admit that, hey, nothing's wrong with all colors of human beings, all races, but here's what's wrong. Some of us practice violence to this percentage. Some of us practice revenge to this percentage. And then if there are those that are upset, they must be like, hey, we upset and we didn't let go of this and that. If there are those that are just chasing power, they must admit to themselves that, hey, I'm chasing power, and this has nothing to do with apartheid. It has something to do with the fact that I'm just a dictator, or I'm just selfish, or I'm just mean, and well, that's evil. And my mom was like, she believes the main base here of human principles is actually for every being to accept to themselves that each heart is governed by good or evil. It's not governed by the color of your skin. If somebody cannot admit that the world will become what it is because of how many evil people there are or how many good people there are, we are never going to stop having wars on earth. And my mom was like, that's the reason why, as we're experiencing everything we're experiencing, let's not take it as, hey, blacks don't like us or who likes us. Let's take it as, hey, these are the people that fail to understand how we live. Let's judge the individuals for what they did, and let's go on to try and teach every day with our actions that forgiving is in the nature of mankind. We can do this, people. Come on. We wake up every morning and, whatever went by yesterday doesn't change anything. We still the same people. So, well, however, the fact that now, as my mom was trying to raise us this way, and she was standing out as a very political topic, so while she was not necessarily owning a farm, but her house was very noted that there's that colored lady that defends the white people and how most people viewed her. And she would try to say, hey, I'm defending peace, I'm defending everybody. If I really was defending the white people, and like the white people have no problem with me, and they don't have a problem with all my children that are colored, they seem to welcome both my children, the whites and the coloreds. So if I was really defending white people, I wouldn't be trying to associate with all of you. I would just like close myself to one end and that's it. If these are the people that welcome me, I'm good there and success. But that's not a world that is great to imagine or necessarily comfortable to imagine. That is something very creepy. And so she would try to make it clear that we are doing what we are doing and we are getting the bullets we are getting because we are searching for all of us. Hello, South Africa, you know. So we would go on like that, and now she would end up engaging in these debates with some people and trying to explain this to them. And however, some of them would just listen and go on behind trying to destroy stuff for her. And now this began to get hectic where some stuff got destroyed and, you know, there began to be like slight political arguments about my family around the area where we were. And now this destabilized like stuff like our income and stuff like that. And this brought us to a state where we had to complete our studies in a more broken way and, you know, we couldn't like forward the way the dream was. Now, when everything began to crash even further, what happened was we tried to learn what we could for ourselves. We had to cut out of school, home study, study online and stuff like that. But then, while building this knowledge we have, we still wanted to share it for ourselves, and our dream did not change. We are going to do different careers. Yes, I already have mentioned many times I wanted to become a biologist, physicist, and human rights activist, defending people with disabilities and most specifically intersex people. But this was not my whole family's career. It was now mine. They supported me, but it was more of my career. Now my family were studying different stuff, and our idea was like, all of us, we're gonna get what we get for ourselves, but when we get to a great financial stability, it is still our dream to rebuild the new South Africa. We are not going to let this idea go. For us, peace is peace. It is such, it's a fact, it exists. It lives in the kingdom of heaven. We're going to make sure that it lives in it. Now, that was the slogan. And so, we tried to ride on that boat, you know. Now, the matter became when we have to look for jobs in order to complete study. Now, with the percentage of study to find jobs, so you can try to like finish up at a good university and everything. Now when we're trying to look for jobs, every place we go, whenever you meet with people, from most people with brown skin, mostly the African black people, but sometimes coloreds and Indians as well. Now they're all asking, they call my siblings, even those that are colored, hey, these white people, what are y'all looking for? What job are y'all going to do? Y'all can't get a job if y'all are not going to clean. Are y'all going to this? Are y'all going to that? Now, they're not looking at how far that you try to educate yourself. Well, even if your financial state is not yet improved, what is the best you can do? How are you presenting yourself as in work-wise? They're looking at the fact that, hey, if you keep your Afrikaner culture, you're Roman Catholic, you speak English and Afrikaans, if you're struggling and you don't have money, you've got to clean. That's freedom. And I was like, okay, now we don't understand. A lot of people will tell us, if these are not those days, y'all can be maids. We searched for jobs in different areas and we kept on struggling. Years and years till today. And now, I'm not going to go through every detail, but now, in a nutshell, I know mostly when I speak on this matter, I speak about how my dream of freeing intersex people can hardly take place in South Africa, but even if I were to put that aside and just look at my family, it's very hurtful to say that in truth, we are victims of racism. That's what makes my very dream even harder to accomplish. Now, we are here today stuck as educated people with skills, with a dream to improve a country, built of a society that cannot give you a chance to do what you would want to do for yourself and the very them. Now, are we angry with any race group? No. Am I saying there are no those few nice black people I've met? No. They were there. Those 1, 2, or 3 here and there will come around. They were there. And whenever we would have to part ways with them, we would mostly tell them, you know what, you're a very different person. Keep up the good work. We admire it. That's what we believe in. We can come together. We should judge each other for how we respect each other, the context of which we met, if it's work, how well we can work together, and not by the colors of our skin, the differences in our culture. You know what? It's hard to find a person like you. God bless you. And we would sometimes keep contact of those kind of people and go where we're going. So I'm not here saying black people are the devil. No. But what I'm saying is that I actually believe in peace. And I may have mentioned this before, that I believe if I deserve a good living, a healthy living, a great level of education and protection, so does the other black girl or black boy or Indian girl or colored girl. We all deserve the best as human beings. I cannot survive in a society where I have to pretend that working towards us coming together and having peace is a bad thing. I cannot live in a society where we have to compete based on identity politics forever. There is so much in life. So I made a video asking if Donald Trump is a dictator, and when most people see that, they may say maybe it's because I'm this rich person and whatsoever, and that's why I support Donald Trump. No. My family's not even like the most sparkling of, people financially. But the truth is, it doesn't mean if we have not made it there, and then all of a sudden we are supposed to now lie about people that are in a good financial state. It doesn't mean if we've experienced this, then all of a sudden we must throw our books in the corner, and now we no longer have dreams, and now we're no longer going to further study, and we're going to just blame everything on the fact that we're victims of racism. You see, this we are not only telling black people that, hey guys, it's the modern day. Apartheid came, it got its bad effects it had on people. Now we get that it was a crime against humanity. But well, we are also telling this to ourselves. So that is why we are still where we are, because we don't feel like the solution to our family situation is to get up and loot any shop and say we deserve to because we are in the state, while we have tried to lift ourselves many times and failed simply because people are judging us based on the way we live. That is not the solution. So my point is, hey everybody, we are still here in South Africa, and by our own experience, stop the whole it's Elon Musk rumor. It is not Elon Musk. I'm not saying I know that Elon Musk definitely never said anything, but if he did speak out on anything, well, however, I don't know. Where did he find out about it and how? But, well, then it means he spoke the truth. Because if I'm to speak on my experience and the experience of the other white children that grew up with me, that were around me, that I can say these group of friends are the people that, well, I'm not in their hearts to say what they do when they go away from me, but, you know, in the places where we were, I can say these are the people that had an agreement with me that this is how we're gonna live and this is what we're up to. And I can say for those kind of people, I can make a word that we stood together, we tried to, you know, sift for peace. But yeah, the truth is, it's sad enough to say that the great land of South Africa is not up to giving up on racism wars. This seems to be an ongoing matter, and for some of them it's a matter they find really serious, and for some of them it's just a matter for corruption, really. You know, it's just a deal, it's just dedication, it's just, I don't know what to call it, it's just, you know, violent pride. I don't know what to call it. But my point was just, that's my own opinion on the whole question of, is it Elon Musk? Or did the Afro Forum go with lies? My point is, everybody, it's not lies. So, I don't know. There is a chance that my family decides to relocate, given the refugee program opportunity. There's a chance we don't, I don't know. But my point was just that in our experience, there is to somewhat a percentage of anti-Afrikaner racism in South Africa, because, well, when I was in grade 7, it's a couple of years ago, in 2011, but I can say it was long before the matter of quotas in sports came about. But I first knew of quotas in school when I was actually selected as one of the school layers, the prefects at school. And there we got to understand that, guys, you're given positions based on how many blacks must be there and how many whites, regardless of how yellow marks were and how y'all behave. And I was like, what? And they were like, yes, that's so that you look like a mixed nation. And I was like, well, I understand us working for peace, but isn't that why we try to come together, try to study together? Like, isn't that why we all given the opportunity, why the country was set free, why we are now a democratic nation, so that everybody has the opportunity to study and become what they are? If you didn't work for it, you can't just work for it because you have the skin color of the missing person that is imagined to be the person that's supposed to be there in order for the good looking picture of a mixed group to exist. Isn't this supposed to come because we worked for it? Isn't that what makes us a world great peaceful nation? And they were like, no. So years later, when quotas actually came up in sports, I had long experienced that, and I had long saw it's coming. That's the hurtful state where we are. It's not that I love it. I'm not here to say protest and, you know, I'm not necessarily saying kill anybody, hurt anybody, fight against anybody. No, but I'm just saying, if I do decide to leave, everybody must know it has nothing to do with that necessarily. I got angry. It has something to do with that. My family, we are not into fighting. We are into peace and unity. We are into developing, into building. So we need a place where we can live peaceful, a place where we can proceed, not a place where we're murdering each other. So we are asking for help, that May anybody that can please support us in the way they can, provide the help that they can in opinion, questions. If there's any way I confused you or misled you, feel free to put your comments or question. If you liked my opinion or me sharing my experience with you, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.